Hello, this is Brian Beatty here. I'm glad you're able to join us today for this session on using generative AI tools to support the HyFlex design process. I'm going to be sharing a presentation with you. I'll go through briefly. This is, of course, available through the conference website. And as well, we'll be looking at some of these GPTs live in action. And so you are going to be able to play with these as well, as long as you have access to the OpenAI platform. And so as we get started, this is called HyFlex course design with AI assistants. And it could be assistants, as in the custom GPTs as entities, or assistants, as in having generative AI be an assist into your normal design process. I would never suggest you design a HyFlex course or even any element of a HyFlex course solely through generative AI. Even if you're using generative AI to create perhaps discussion prompts, often it'll do a really good job with discussion prompts, but it's always important that you are part of the process. Never would we do this and consider it good to go out of the box. Real briefly, just to make sure we've got the background here, HyFlex is focused at accessible learning. We want to have more students having access to high quality, equitable learning opportunities. These could be new students to you. These could be your current students who have the need for some flexibility with their busy schedule so they don't miss out on learning opportunities just because the mode they need is not available for them. So it's flexible learning. We give 2, maybe 3 modes: online, face-to-face. We support student choice with multiple participation modes, with students making that choice, not the instructor dictating to them, at least in most cases. And we're looking for equivalent learning, not equal experiences. We can't give equal experiences, but we want effective learning across all the formats. And so we start in our design process with strategic planning. And so we're going to focus on strategic planning. We'll talk about defining goals. The tools we develop will help you define goals, create frameworks, and an overall design approach. It's important to have a plan for what you want to do and not just take an old course design and flop it into HyFlex. That might be how you start, but once you develop a little bit more experience with this, you'll realize it actually takes some revised design across the board for the most part. Then we talk about content planning. There's a tool for content planning that's going to help you structure lectures or lessons. Could be lectures, doesn't have to be a lecture. Creating activities, which could include clearly engagement strategies, sometimes assessment strategies, and sometimes even student-generated content. It's going to help you foster interaction around the content. How is content being used? And hopefully, we're also going to support this idea of accessible content, materials that work for everyone. And this maybe becomes a special challenge when we have student-generated content. So that could be something that the tool helps you kind of figure out strategies for. We'll also talk about we have a tool for assessment planning. We're looking for fair evaluation. That's equitable across modes. Sometimes it's equal. It's the same thing across modes. But it also, we want valid and reliable evaluation too. So the tool can help you kind of think through those strategies. We're looking oftentimes for varied methods too, because we do self-assessment as well as summative assessment. Discussions, quizzes, projects, papers, tests, all of those can be valid methods for your design strategy for assessing learning. Academic integrity, of course, a big issue for us. And how do we have strategies that help us meet some of the challenges that we know are going to be part of our academic integrity system that we have in place, and especially with generative AI moving more and more into the process? How do we protect against basically cheating? Okay, another really important part of this is developing engagement strategies and an overall plan for engagement that engage students in each mode and across modes. These engagement strategies also will help us develop community, hopefully fostering collaboration and meaningful interaction, not just with the content, but also with each other and with the instructor, even if someone's working completely asynchronously. How do our engagement strategies still get them engaging with other people, even though we might have some cool custom GPTs to help to do that as well? Don't leave it just at that, clearly. And also, there's a tool for implementation planning. We need institutional buy-in. How do we secure support, administrative support, technology support? We need the infrastructure. We need audiovisual solutions. We need a good learning management system that works for us. And we need other apps to use, depending upon what our strategies are for engagement and assessment and potentially even content sharing and acquisition. How about generative AI? If we want students to use that in their learning, can we give them a secure environment? So planning for a technology infrastructure is an important part of this. Faculty support. How do faculty get support? Training, resources, instructional design support, professional development, developing skills, developing community, workshops, etc., and also giving them access to good generative AI tools as well. And of course, student readiness is another part of the implementation planning I think that we should be considering. How do we help students choose well when they have choices among modes? How do we help them prepare for success? How do we help them know what they need to succeed in all these situations? Of course, we also have another tool for evaluation planning. And this is not evaluating how much they've learned necessarily. It's really evaluating the impact of our HyFlex approach. This could be a course level, could be a program level, depending upon whatever program you might have. How do we collect data? What data should we collect? How do we analyze our results? Well, how do we find meaning from the data that we're gathering? And how do we then refine our approach if that's part of the plan? Oftentimes we do evaluation so we can assess the quality of a program and how well we're meeting program outcomes. But we should also be considering aspects of how do we make revisions for this. That's often an important part of this. So at the HyFlex Learning community, we developed at what I call AI-powered GPT suite to help support with design. And I've integrated these into the HyFlex course design workshops that we offer. But essentially, there are 6 specialized GPTs that guide pretty much each of these aspects of HyFlex design, from the very conceptual ideas around what HyFlex should we do? Should we even do HyFlex? You can explore that question with one of these GPTs, all the way through program evaluation. These are where the GPTs are. You can see the titles on the page. If you have access to the slide deck, these are direct links that will go right into the GPTs. But of course, you can find them easily just on the OpenAI platform in the GPT store, and I'll show you how to do that real quickly. So let's do a little bit of exploration. Now, we don't have time for a full explanation or a full exploration, but so we'll just do probably 2 or 3 of these in this session, and then you have full access. They're already available for you to use today, even now. You might even click over to one of these now to play along or to play on your own. You have access to the sandbox. So in order to access these tools, you do need to have an OpenAI account. It could be a free account. I use a paid account because for me, it's for the value I get is much more than I'm giving up in terms of money, in my mind. Also, our university has a deal with OpenAI.edu, their program, and so I can actually do this free. I often use it outside of the university environment because I like to work in a public sphere, sharing the GPTs. And inside my university environment, it's only accessible to people within that environment. So my account I'm using right now is outside of the environment. You may have a couple of accounts too, so you have to make some decisions. How do you find these? Well, for me, they'd be in the left list, but let's just say you don't have this in your left list of tools you've used. And so you could just search GPTs for HyFlex. If you search in the GPT for HyFlex, the first ones that come up is this set of planning. And until someone else creates some that probably go up higher in the domain here, I don't know how they pick this, but you'll find them right here. So you can find them over here. So let's just start with this idea of HyFlex strategy planning. These are really helpful, I think, when we're trying to solve problems that we don't have a ready solution for. When you're doing your HyFlex designing, oftentimes the first time you do this, you're a little unsure of what might work. You may have read some of the research out there, some of the papers that have been written, some of the books and articles, etc. Say, hey, these strategies work well. But how about with you? Especially if you have an edge case. For any of these tools, if you don't know how to use the tool or what it's supposed to do for you, there should be a handy reference. How do I use this tool? It'll tell you what to do or tell you what it can do for you, and then we'll ask you if you want to get started. And so I'm going to give it a situation. I have a STEM class with lectures and labs. Can HyFlex work for me? Now, you might say, well, I don't need a GPT to do this. I could just go up to any generative AI tool that has a more modern large language model in there and ask it the question, and you'll get some similar answers, yes. But the GPT tool has been fed documents that basically are the HyFlex strategy documents that we've created. The members of the HyFlex learning community have created. The HyFlex book is actually fed into this as well. So it's kind of drawing from a more confined set of documents, at least to start with. And so it gives me an answer. Sure, it could work, but it takes careful planning, of course. Lectures and labs, and actually a lot of places will do a combined HyFlex approach, hybrid HyFlex approach for a STEM class. Sometimes the labs will all be available HyFlex as well. Sometimes they're not. And so, I can it often these tools often give you an opportunity for a worksheet. So let's see, yeah. So let's just say yes. Tell me what you get. Tell me what you want to give me. And so it's going to give me some ideas and ways to kind of go through this. And so I can get this typical GPT output is text-based in front of me, but I can also get it in the form of a table. I can ask it for an output. And so going through this first set of practices and or strategy decisions can be important for you. Let me just ask one. Who else on my campus needs to be involved? And let's just see what it says there. So it's going to ask it. I'm asking it some general things because when I'm doing my planning, I need to know who the key stakeholders are, especially if I'm going to be doing this maybe for the first time in my context. And so this will give me some of that help to identify what that is. And so strategy you can work with, and then you can get a document, basically a strategy plan, a strategic plan. Let's take another look at another one of these. So let me stop this one and go back to the GPTs list. And I'm going to go for HiFlex. And let's just talk about, oh, another thing. There's a whole custom suite that I've presented in different places around engaging students in learning. So I'm not going to focus on engagement here. Those GPTs themselves are really helpful in developing or part of an engagement strategy that I use. But I want to focus now, let's just talk a little bit for a few minutes on assessment. And so I know this is one of the big challenge areas for many is how do I plan for assessment? And so let's just say I'd like help creating an assessment plan for a HiFlex course or program. And so it's going to ask me some of the basic things. What are we doing this for? And so I'm going to say I have a course. Now, what I could do is if I wanted to and I was comfortable with, I could upload a syllabus. And as long as you're comfortable sharing this in whatever data environment you're using the GPT tool in, whether it's public facing with kind of feeding into the database or more of a private network like we might be having in our institutional instance of this that doesn't use the data that we put in anywhere else. I'm just going to say I have a seminar course, and it's going to be in I don't know, basic learning theory. That's kind of part of the field I teach. And we'll see where we go from there. And so it's going to try to give me some help in developing an assessment plan. Yeah, so I have, so it's going to ask me some questions there. So what's this overall scope? And it's going to give me some suggested things. And so it's going to give me its version of learning outcomes. And I could always feed it the learning outcomes I have. And I normally would do that if I have a course already designed, because I don't want it to plan for someone else's course or the generic course out there in LLM word. I want it to plan for my specific course. And some other additional considerations, formative assessment, summative assessment, self-assessment, et cetera. Actually, I want to focus on self-assessment because I think most of us probably have a pretty good handle on formative or a summative assessment. I want to focus on self-assessment strategies that have students working with each other across all modes of the HiFlex course. All right, because I think that's one of the golden things we could have. If we have students doing self-assessment to help them learn how well they're learning and maybe what they can do next, and working together across modes. These are really important things that sometimes take a little bit more nuance to understand, to experience. And there's so many different ways to do this. My initial thoughts on these would probably be relatively limited to my experiences, but you know what? I can get some good ideas from a GPT tool. And even if I've done this before with this GPT tool, with this specific course, if I do it again, I'm going to get slightly different, maybe some substantially different recommendations. And so this is what it's asking. It's saying, hey, we could do this. You could do peer-reviewed drafts. Actually do that already. You could do discussion prompts and self-scoring. I do discussion prompts all the time. Don't do self-scoring. I would consider that. I'd take a look at that. I don't know if I do that or not. Reflective learning journals actually do that already. That works well. AI enhanced self-assessment. There you go. Now, here some of us might do this with our students, but oftentimes we leave this as optional. You might put it into a recorder thing. Maybe not. Some key design considerations, etc. And so here's some things. I want to see what the plan looks like. Let's have the plan. Now, if you're using a free account for OpenAI in these tools, you're going to have a limitation on how many interactions you'll get. I don't know what that is specifically. It's not long enough for me to be happy with my interactions in this case ChatGPT 4.0 or 4.0. So that's one of the reasons why I have a paid account. But you might find that it does enough for you just with the free access, or it gets you a start, or you could jump into kind of go through a more accelerated process here rather than going back and forth on various aspects. And so here's going to give me the plan. The assessment plan is what we're looking for. These are the different principles that show up in assessment, important for me to know. Here are some activities. Oftentimes, this set of basically this spreadsheet it's giving me, the table, is really what I want to work with. It connects it to the learning outcomes. I like that approach. Now, of course, I probably should have given it my own set of learning outcomes if I really wanted to be most useful. But this is just showing you the kinds of things that it can do. All right, so you can clearly, find other GPTs to play with as far as high flex planning, and different things might be really important for you. The impact evaluation, I'd hope that we were able to do this more often than perhaps we have in the past. We don't always have a chance to do impact evaluation, but this is one of the most important things that we can do, I think, to support our community as well as for our own use, as well as communicating into our institutions. So essentially, that's a brief look at the exploration. You can contact me, of course, through email anytime. The HighFlex Learning website is linked here, always available, always online. Lots of resources there, webinars, etc. And of course, the book is there. The book still is relevant. It was written many, many years ago. It's been published since 2019. Lots of case studies, though, about 30 case studies that continue to keep it fresh for the rest of us. Thank you for listening, and I hope that we'll have an opportunity for questions if we're here in the live session, or you can always get me through email if you have other questions later. Thank you for listening.